Mr Speaker, I'm very pleased to speak to the Employment Relations Statutory Minimum Redundancy Entitlements Amendment Bill. I'd like to make some initial comments about the government's priorities around creating jobs. Mr Speaker, creating jobs is a top priority for this government. We are committed to sustainable economic recovery and creating more jobs for New Zealanders. The government's economic policy during the global recession has been focused around this commitment, and the government has taken steps to keep people in employment and assist them when they lose their jobs. And we've put some policies in place that encourage economic growth built on exports and investment rather than the government or consumer spending. Last year, the government's small business relief package was designed to help lighten the load of small and medium-sized businesses which employ many New Zealanders. That plan was about improving the environment for business and therefore jobs and growth. There have been a number of members' bills that have been brought to this House on employment law, Mr Speaker. Some have passed into law, others haven't. Suffice to say that National believes employment law must expand job opportunities and treat all parties fairly, protecting both employees and employers. Mr Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to insert a new part into the Employment Relations Act, providing for minimum statutory redundancy entitlements. Currently, an employment's entitlements, if made redundant, are governed by their employment agreement. If there is nothing in their employment agreement, the default position is that no redundancy compensation is required to be paid. Mr Speaker, employers and employees are free to agree to redundancy provisions in their employment agreements. As well, the law also provides that all redundancies must only be where a position has become genuinely redundant. Employers are not able to make a worker redundant on a whim. Specifically, this bill outlines that all employees that have worked more than 12 months are entitled to redundancy compensation, and the bill outlines some requirements around that particular point. Mr Speaker, National will be opposing this bill. We are concerned that the Statutory Redundancy Provisions Act as a barrier to employers taking on new staff. This would work against the government's commitment to creating jobs and fostering economic growth. The government acknowledges that over the recession, redundancies have been of real concern. In late 2008, the government launched its restart package, which provided for workers made redundant, helping them back into work. This was set up quickly to help provide breathing space for those hardest hit by redundancy. Mr Speaker, the issue of statutory redundancy was assessed in the last term of Parliament by the Public Advisories Group report on redundancy and restructuring in great detail. Interestingly, 14 of the 22 submitters supported the status quo. There are negatives that were noted by the report, and they were concerning and numerous. They were concerned that there would be disincentives to hire more staff and it could reduce wages. They envisaged that there would be more temporary and contract workers. Importantly, they were concerned that by putting greater pressure on businesses, jobs would be lost and indeed it could jeopardise business viability. Clearly, the previous government were concerned by these findings because they clearly did not go ahead and implement a statutory requirement for redundancy. The previous government had 9 years to do so, and they did not. That is very, very revealing. Indeed, they had their opportunity, Mr Speaker, when they introduced the Employment Relations Act 2000. They failed to do so, and that speaks volumes. The government, like the Public Advisory Group, is concerned that mandatory redundancy provisions will destroy jobs and stop employers from hiring new staff. That would be totally counter to our commitment to create jobs. The government is also concerned about the significant cost to business, which is not insignificant. We consider this proposal to make redundancy unaffordable for most businesses, and there will be a real risk of businesses closing as a result. Mr Speaker, we will be opposing this bill.
I call Keith Locke.